In 2020, By Kilian launched its immensely popular Angel Share fragrance, which forms part of the Liquors collection, and in my personal opinion, it's one of the best releases from any brand in recent years. Since then, we've seen many inspired by interpretations of the Angel Share DNA from various Middle Eastern brands, and today I'm going to be comparing 5 of the most talked about ones in the fragrance community, and also by other reviewers. With its complex combination of boozy cognac, smoked woods, spicy cinnamon and sweet praline, not to mention the sprinkling of nuttiness that you get, Angel Share makes for the perfect autumn and winter scent. So to find out which one of these is the most accurate and also the best performing ones out of this little esteemed lineup, stay tuned to this episode of Mags Frags. Yes, hello again and welcome to this latest episode of Mags Frags, where it's the fragrance that's the star of the show. My name's Paul, and today I'm going to be trying to settle a long-running debate once and for all, or at least in my own mind anyway, about which Angel's Share clone reigns supreme. And not since Creed Aventus has so many people discussed and debated a particular scent DNA, and which is the best copy of it. I have done a comparison video before sometime last year with only 2 of these from this lineup, but after that review my comments section became flooded with people recommending the other 3, so today I've got all 5 of the biggest hitters in front of me, which are the Camera by Lattafa, we've got Fire Your Desire by Amir Perfumes, then we've got Kismet Angel by Maison Alhambra, we've got Sharaf Blend by Zimaya, and we've also got Cocktail Intense by Fragrance World. These have all been described as being the ultimate Angel Share clone depending on which reviewer you watch, but never have all 5 been lined up side by side and kind of compared directly to each other. So that's why I would say that this is the ultimate Angel Share shootout. Okay, so over a 1-week period, I performed a series of pretty non-scientific tests, and every day I put one of these up against the original, spraying them on opposite hands, as well as spraying them all on tester strips so that I could do a longevity test. I did also test them side by side just to see which overall smell I enjoyed as a standalone fragrance, regardless of how accurate it was to the Angel Share. Okay, so in terms of the opening, I'd say that in 5th place, and the least accurate to the original, was the Camera. And this opens up very sweet and synthetic smelling with hardly any of the cognac or the oak that's very prominent in the opening of the original. And this seems to just start out at the kind of like at the dry down stage of the original, where the sweetness of the praline comes in. It's not a bad smelling opening at all, and there's nothing off-putting, but from the initial spray and for the first 5 minutes or so I don't really smell anything that even resembles the opening of Angel Share. In 4th place is the Fire Your Desire, which I do perhaps get a touch more booziness in the opening of this one, but that might be just because of the perfumer's alcohol. And again, it's a bit all over the place if I'm honest at first, until it kind of settles down. And for me, it didn't make me think of the old distillery with the wooden oak barrels like I do get with the original. And again, nothing at the start of this kind of wows me and would fool me into believing that it's the real deal. In 3rd place is the Cocktail Intense, and this one definitely does start out a bit more balanced than the other 2, and it opens up quite boozy with some sweetness and a bit of spiciness in there also, which I didn't get in the opening of the first 2. It's definitely not as natural smelling as what you get with the original, and comparing the 2 side by side there is a significant difference in quality, and again this is more synthetic smelling, but this is to be expected because with cheaper fragrances they do tend to always smell quite harsh in the opening anyway, and very rarely do they start out smelling exactly like what they're supposed to be copying. But this isn't too bad, and you will be able to tell what it's inspired by for sure, even though it's still only about 60% there in my opinion. And at number 2 is the Kismet Angel, and there's not much between this and the Cocktail Intense for the first 5 minutes, to be honest. But if I was being ultra critical, I'd say that there's maybe a little bit less of the perfumer's alcohol in this one. Therefore, you will pick up on the other kind of accords a little bit quicker, like the woodiness and the nuttiness. But there's still a decent amount of like the cognac note that comes through, and also some sweetness from the vanilla and the praline. But it's nothing that's going to make me want to throw this away or make my original redundant. And at number 1 is the Sharaf blend, which brings a large dose of bright booziness, and it's quickly followed by lots of honey-like sweetness and even a tiny bit of the smoked woodiness. For me, it's bigger and more bold than the others, with more of a wow factor. And this is the one that's going to make you think, yes, that's like the Angel's Share that I know. But having said that, if you were to put it up directly side by side with the original, it's just not quite there in terms of its natural quality and complexity. The original is significantly better blended than any of these in the opening, in my opinion. But this Sharaf blend is definitely the best for me in the opening. Okay, so obviously the most important part of any scent is the dry down phase, between the 1 to 5 hour mark, when a fragrance is at the height of its projection. And this is where things become a little bit more tricky with this comparison, because once these little fellas settle down, they're all going to give you a pretty decent likeness to the original. And in the air, they will give you a decent, reasonable Angel's Share experience, especially if you haven't got the original at hand to compare them. However, the main difference that I find with all of these is that they have more of an artificial ambery sweetness that comes off smelling like a bit like plasticine or Play-Doh, whereas again in the original you get more of an authentic praline and vanilla, so it is a touch more gourmand smelling. But for me, the Fire Your Desire smells the least accurate, and even though I really enjoy how this one smells, it goes off in its own direction with not much more than like a fleeting resemblance in my opinion. Next is the Camera, which is probably the sweetest of the dry downs and a little bit too sweet without any of the woodiness, the nuttiness or even the spiciness that's found in the original. The Kismet Angel and the Cocktail Intense are both fairly decent and tied for second place. Although if I was pushed, I'd probably go for the Cocktail Intense over the Kismet Angel, just because it retains a bit more of the booziness for a touch longer. But again, my pick of the bunch is the Sharaf blend, and this one to me is the most comparable to the original in terms of overall scent accuracy. And the best analogy that I can give about how these smell is by how the bottles are presented. They all take 1 or 2 elements from the original, which will remind you of the original, but they might just have a different cap or not include the crystal detailing. And like this one, it's not even the same shape, but there's enough of a resemblance for you just to recognise what they're meant to be. And that's exactly what you get with the scent quality. Some take the sweetness, some are a bit more boozy, but none actually include all the elements and the intricate details that make up this little masterpiece in my opinion. So to test the performance, I spread them all on tester strips, and to make it fair I just saturated each one so that none were gaining an unfair advantage if the atomizer sprayed more juice, etc. I left them for a few days, and I just kept going back to them every couple of hours just to see which one I thought were still going strong and which had completely vanished. I also didn't want to go nose blind whilst I was testing them, so stepping away from them and going back like intermittently just helped me kind of get a third person's view and a bit more clarity. The first ones to become totally undetectable were the Cocktail Intense and the Kismet Angel, and these lasted significantly less amount of time than the top 2, and even within the first few hours these had become very faint and musky, whilst the other 3 were still going very strong. Then I'd say the Fire Your Desire was the next to completely fade away, but this was very respectable, and I could make it out the morning after I'd first sprayed it. But the runaway winners in the performance category were again the Sharaf blend and the Camera, which I could still smell 48 hours after first spraying them. And out of the 2, I'd say the Camera was ever so slightly more noticeable. So this one wins the performance category. Okay, so in summary, I will start off by firstly saying that if you can borrow, beg or steal or do anything you can to be able to afford the original version, then I would say go for it because it's definitely worth it. And as good as these 5 are, none of them quite get to the same level as natural scent quality as what you get in this, in my opinion. They do all resemble Angel's Share in some form or another, but even the one that I regarded as being the best of the bunch, which is this Sharaf blend, does have kind of more of an artificial synthetic sweetness when it's compared side by side to the original. These are what I'd describe as being more like caricatures, where you can instantly tell what they're meant to be, but everything's just slightly pronounced and the accords just seem to be a bit more exaggerated. These will fool a lot of people into believing they're the real deal if they just catch a quick waft of them in the air. But side by side, I'd be confident that I'd be able to pick out the original 10 times out of 10 if I was doing a blind test with these. I will stick to my claim that I've made for the past couple of years though, and that is that in my opinion the most accurate copy and the best performing clone of Angel's Share that I've ever smelled is not any of these, and it's actually the Saintly S extract spray from the perfume parlour. This stuff is super close to the original and it's basically what I wear all the time, hence why there's hardly anything left in this 60ml bottle. And to those who clicked off the video early, tough luck, but to those who are still here, pick up a bottle of this. It's really good and you definitely won't regret it. Okay, so that's it for this Angel's Share comparison, but in the next episode I've got another 3 fragrances that have just landed from the Essence Vault that I'll be giving my thoughts on. So to find out what they are, don't forget to tune in to tomorrow's episode to find out. And as always guys, if you've got any value from this video and you found it useful in any way, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. It's also great to hear your opinions, your thoughts and your critiques on all of the fragrances that feature in these reviews, so don't forget to keep your comments coming down in the comments section. So once again, thank you very much for tuning into this episode. Stay safe, keep smelling fresh, and I'll see you very soon for another one. Bye bye for now.